That's pretty funny. But anyways, I thank you guys all for having me on today, and I'm very, very excited to talk about a topic that is a bane of existence for a lot of people.
Right, and you have PowerPoint in Spanish.
I should. Yeah.
So yeah, that is very multicultural of you.
Yeah, on this computer, I have two computers, and so this computer, it's actually set up in Windows is set up in Spanish. So we're going to talk about scope creep and ultimately how you can get your projects done much, much faster. And also you guys can have your projects be much more profitable, which at the end of the day, you know, that's what it's all about. We are running a business. We do want to make money. So here's like the agenda that I have for today. So first of all, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm going to give you the 4 keys for ending scope creep. And then I'm going to give you guys some very, very simple tips on how to get your projects done much, much faster and some examples of that. And then at the end, I'll give you guys access to the slides. So, you know, you don't have to worry about taking copious notes for this. But I do ask, you know, just a couple things of you. Make sure that you turn off your phone, turn off any other distractions, pay attention. I've got a lot to cover, and ask questions, you know. So like, Tim, if you could help me out with managing the chat, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm there. I'm ready. I am at your beck and call.
Perfect.
So guys, if you want to drop your questions into the chat, or there's also a Q&A. There's a Q&A button down at the bottom.
Great.
You can do either one.
Yeah. So, you know, before I get into, before I move forward in the slides, I just have a question in terms of, I want to get kind of like a sense for the audience so that I make sure that I address everybody's kind of like what they're going through right now. So, I'm assuming that the majority of you guys are digital agencies. Is that correct, Tim?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. If you could just write in the chat, kind of like what are the areas that you focus in, whether that be web dev, you know, lead generation, like Facebook ads, PPC, whatever, just so that I kind of know who's here. And then if you have specific, okay, say web dev, lead gen, perfect.
Email.
Let's see, email. I didn't see the email one.
Yeah, that's from Boss John. Let's see, who else have we got here? We got Lauren from beautiful Windsor, Ontario.
Nice.
He's web dev.
Web dev.
Yep.
Perfect.
Faisal is a CRM guy.
Great.
Sam is a cannabis consultant. Let's see who else we got here. Yeah.
Web dev design, digital marketing, everything included. Lots of moving parts there.
Yep.
Yep. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So that gives me a sense. This is good. Oh, let's see. We got a couple more.
Well,
SEO, video. Okay, awesome. Great. So everything that I'm going to talk to you about today is, you can relate it to pretty much everything that you guys have said. Personally, like I have a background in web dev, so that's the examples that I'm going to show you. It's going to be more like web dev and design. But, you know, all in all, as Tim was talking earlier, like this side of running an agency, it's not usually the most exciting for most people. And, you know, that's why I put like the operations with kind of like the crazy font. I understand that operations is not the most exciting part of running an agency. Obviously, closing big deals and making money, like that's the exciting part. But what's not exciting is when you look at how much you spent to get those projects out the door and you realize, hey, I didn't make like any money, or a lot of the times what happens is people end up losing money on some of these projects. And that's basically when I realized that selling is actually the easy part of running a digital agency, especially if you've been doing this, you know, over a few years. I'm willing to bet that like if we put you in a room of 100 of your ideal clients, you're probably going to sell like 90% of the room. But operations is really where you're going to make or lose all your money. And so, you know, like as a naturally, like I gravitated towards sales within my own agency as I realized how important operations was, because, you know, I'd be like selling like crazy and none of that was translating to profit and I wasn't able to give myself a raise. And I was like, what is going on? And that's kind of like when I learned how important operations is to our industry. So a little bit about myself, if you never heard about me, I started an agency back in 2012. I scaled that agency. We had over 200 clients on retainer. And basically like the game changer for me was when I moved my operations down to Tijuana, Mexico, which I like to call the hidden gem of design and development. So I've been on all these podcasts, I've written a couple books, and in 2017, I essentially shifted our focus from doing websites, design, digital marketing to, hey, let's help all these other agency owners to get the talent that they've been looking for, but that didn't know existed. So we started out with a team of 5. We've grown the team that we have. This is actually an old photo. We're right around 50 people right now. We just hired 3 people since Friday. You know, and the pandemic has actually been really, really good for us because most of our agencies, like, they're getting really busy. Their customers are like, man, I should have been listening to those digital folks that have been hounding me for the past 10 years. And so that translates into
Chris,
us.
by the way, this picture looks like when I try to take pictures of my kids. One, somebody's got their eyes closed. 2 people are looking in a different direction.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure, like, and I'm sure somebody has just done a wet willy to somebody else. So yeah.
Yeah, our group is pretty fun. So, but it is like herding cats. And I would love to take a new picture, but of course we're all quarantined. But yeah, so let's just dive right into it. The first thing that I want to talk about is ending scope creep. Now, if scope creep has been an issue for you ever, just put in the chat, right? Issue. I think that everybody at some point in time has experienced scope creep, and it can be one of the most frustrating things. All right, Jerry, Bojan, Tim says, Lauren, yep. It's one of the most frustrating things because it just kind of seems to come out of nowhere. And I think that part of the reason why this is an issue for pretty much everybody is just the nature of who we are. You know, and digital agency owners are some of the most giving and kind people on the planet. And whenever we bring on a new client, they're like our new best friend, right? Anytime, and like, you know, as you start to work with people, like, I'll bet you, like, a lot of you guys get super excited when your clients have big wins, and like you celebrate that more than almost like making more money. And that's just who we are. And that's one of the reasons why I love working with agency owners, because we're just great people. So at the beginning of the relationship, you're usually like, yeah, like anything you need, you know, I'm always here to help you. I'll do whatever you want. And then before long, it's like, oh my God, if you ask for one more thing, I'm going to kill you. And by all, you know, we always start off the relationship with the best of intentions. But if you don't manage this very, very closely, it can easily spiral out of control. And not only do you have a project that just takes forever, you end up making very, very little money on that. So obviously scope creep is something that we all have to manage. And so here are the very, very simple tips on how to do that. So the first thing is, in your contracts, you just have a list of do's and don'ts in your actual contracts. You should, by all means, show the clients exactly what they're getting and what they don't. And I encourage people to have timelines as to when things are going to happen. So I'm just out of curiosity, the people that are on the call, are you guys typically charging a flat fee, or do you roll it into a retainer? Because there are definitely different ways that you can use the do's and don'ts in your contracts to your advantage. So just for example, if you're doing a flat fee, you can write in your contract, hey, after, you know, a certain amount of time, we're going to collect the next portion. Okay, so Sam says they're doing both. That's great. In your contract, you can write in, hey, after 30 days, we're going to charge you for this much, or whatever comes first, you know, after we get the mock-ups approved or whatever. And then if you have the retainers, you can also charge automatically after a certain amount of time. Now, let's see, flat fee and didn't understand the retainer model. That's great. Okay, so one of the huge things that I advise people that are doing the flat fee, because most of y'all are doing it 50-50, change it to 60-40. A lot of the times what happens when you do it 50-50 is there's this psychological phenomenon called psychological withholding. And it's basically that when somebody has something that you need, subconsciously, they will drag their feet because they know that you need that thing. So if you are charging them 50% up front, clients will subconsciously often drag their feet because they're like, what is he or she going to do? I've got half the money. And if you simply shift it to a 60-40 or well, obviously like 100% upfront is way better, or, you know, 60-20-20 or 70-30 or something like that.
Yeah,
If you just move that needle just a little bit, it'll help you to get stuff done a lot faster. So that's a little tip on that side.
agreed. And by the way, the more you can charge up front, the better your cash flow.
Exactly. Exactly.
And the more dollars you can pull forward, the better.
So all of those things, write those into your contracts, not just the payment terms, of course, but all the little things that you're going to do that aren't included. Photography, video editing, like copywriting, like all of these things need to be listed in your contract so that there's no misunderstandings or missed expectations between you and the client. The second thing is getting sign-offs. So how many of you guys are actually getting sign-offs on like mock-ups or copy? And you know, you're actually having a formal sign off with that where the client is saying, okay, this is good to go. You absolutely should be doing that if you're not doing it already. And some of the you know, the reasons why people are like, well, if I get the sign off, then, you know, they might be mad at me, or they might like feel like it's got to be perfect. A very easy way to get around this is that you give them a month of changes after the site goes live. So then they're like not like stuck on like making a decision. Each stage of the process, they have a sign off. Let's see.
Yeah, so great question from Lauren. So where do you recommend sign off spots? And Lauren's a web developer.
Perfect. So it depends on how you're doing copy. If you do copy at the beginning before doing anything, I would get a sign off on the copy, and then a sign off after the mock-ups, and then a sign off after the site, you know, is just about to go live. That's when I would do it. And then, you know, maybe a sign off at the very end. But yeah, at the very least, copy, mock-ups, and then dev before you go live. That's what I would do. So getting those sign-offs are really, really important. And then everybody knows, hey, we're moving on to the next stage. And if there is an update that we're making after this, then I'm going to have to pay for it. The next thing is a change order request. So every once in a while, your client's going to want something done after they've done the sign-off. You will absolutely want to fill out a formal change order request. And even if you're going to do it for free, if you're going to make those updates for free. So let's say they sign off on the mockups and then they decide, you know what, we want to redesign the about page. Okay, cool. So fill out the change order request, put how much it would actually cost if you charge them, and then just zero it out. Give them a 100% discount on that. So when they sign off on that, then they see, this is actually costing money, right?
And also, people forget what you have given.
Yep.
Right. And so what you'll end up with is at the end of the project, and you're thinking, oh my God, like I don't know if we broke even here. And your client's thinking like, well, you know, they just did all this stuff for, like, they just did all this extra stuff. So like it couldn't have cost very much. And so they're still thinking that you've made a lot of profit and you're pulling your hair out. So change orders are humongous. And you can do change orders, by the way. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're a web dev guy, that's great. If you're an SEO person, super, you can work all that out. But change orders and documenting the things that you are doing is so important, because at some point you're going to have to justify where their money went.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just curious, Tim, do you have a template for a change order request document? Because people always ask me and I don't have one. So I didn't know if you had one. That would be something great.
No,
we should make one.
Well, the ones I always used was, change order. It says change order on the top, and then it says, what it is, and then the price, and then I would append that to make that a part of the contract. So that would be a schedule in the contract. So you might actually have, your master services agreement, your statement of work, and then 15 change orders stuck on as additional appendices to that to the contract.
Yeah, I think we have a couple really good questions in here. Amy's asking, how detailed is the sign off for the final portion? Do you recommend baseline agreed regression going into maintenance phrases? I've never heard baseline agreed regression going into maintenance phases. That makes sense. So when I ran my web dev agency, everything included a retainer, and we ended up doing unlimited ongoing support after the website went live. That was a massive, massive help for us when getting everything signed off and moving into the beyond the launch phase, because we would basically say to the clients, we would say, you know what, you're never going to hear me, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, you're never going to hear me use the word finished when it comes to your website. You're only going to hear me use the word launch. And the reason is that your website's never really finished, kind of like how your business is never really finished. So as we go through this process and you're giving us the sign-offs and we're checking stuff off, just know that this is really just like the first draft. And then beyond that, as we start to drive traffic and your clients are and your customers are essentially telling us what changes we need to do to the site, because you have our unlimited support program, you basically, you know, or we'll identify what needs to be made, what changes need to be made, or you can tell us, press a button, goes to the team, it gets taken care of. You don't have to worry about it. So that was a huge help in terms of like getting everything signed off on and moving to the next stage. I would highly encourage that you guys test that out.
We had two other great questions here. We've got from Boss John, we've got a change order request for email marketing.
Yeah.
If you have an opinion there, so how do, you know, basically he wants to know how you define change order request in sort of an ongoing campaign.
I mean, I think that you should allocate, well, this is another question that I would have, is like, do you know exactly how much time you are budgeting for each of those emails? Like everybody should be able to identify exactly how much money they spent on every single project they do, down to like the penny. So if you have a certain amount of budget allocated, and in your contract it says, okay, we're going to write these emails for you, you're going to get one round of revision. After that, it's going to be whatever, you know, it's going to be $150 an hour or whatever you guys are charging. I would like basically reverse engineer how much time you have allocated for these email campaigns, and then determine how many revisions you can give them and when you need to create a sign off or a change order request.
Right. And Bastian, in terms of you know, change order. So a change order in your case would be something like they have approved the template, right? And that's the template they're using. And then all of a sudden they say, oh, wait a minute, we'd like to make a change to the template.
Yeah.
Since they've already approved the template, that would be a change order. Or if you've already given them, you know, 2 revisions of content and then they change the content, then you say, okay, that's a change order because we already wasted a bunch of time on content you're not using. And when it comes right down to it, the way to present a change order is not you are nickel and diming the client, but rather you're making things fair. Like, oh, we either you didn't express this, or this is something neither one of us anticipated, and that work only belongs to you. Therefore, it doesn't help us at all. Therefore, you've got to pay for it.
Yeah.
Now we've got another great question from Jason. Says, how do you guys feel about change orders versus out of scope, and how to clearly define what is out of scope based on the terms of the contract?
To me, that's just kind of semantics. So, you know, like if it's a big enough change order, then maybe you just requote the project. But in the next one, I'm actually going to give you a certain tip on how to handle that.
Right.
So I'm going to save that until I get to the next slide.
All right.
I do want to point out that in every other industry, except for ours, for some reason, they charge for these changes. It's just like automatically you're going to get charged more. Like if you're building a house and you have to have the architect redo the plans, of course they're going to charge you for that. The contractor, you know, obviously like when there's hard costs, the contractor who's building your house, they're going to have to charge you for the other materials. It just so happens that in our industry, for some reason, I think a lot of it is because we're just such nice people. We don't bill the same way that everybody else does. And so that's something that like we're intimidated by, but for the most part, customers are not like, they're used to paying more for all of these changes. And so by no means should you just be giving all this stuff away because you feel shy about it. Like charge them. The worst thing that you can do is you could be like, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you this one for free. You know, I'm going to zero out the balance for the change order. And then on the next one, you know, if there is a next one, then, you know, we're going to charge you for it. I mean, that seems totally fair.
Yeah.
Much less tangible. Yes, I 100% agree with you, Jason, that the building materials are much less tangible. And that's part of our job in helping to describe that to clients. Actually, I created an analogy yesterday because one of our clients was like, hey, our sites are running really, really slowly. Can you figure out why? And so we looked, and it had nothing to do with the website. It was his hosting. And, so he had like, I don't know, 50 websites on one shared server, and all of the websites were running slower because of that. So the analogy that we use, it's like you have this food court and there's 50 different businesses and there's only one checkout line. So everybody's trying to check out at the same time, and nobody's able to check out fast. So if you can use that kind of like creative side to describe these things to your clients and put it into terms where they see, kind of like those physical building materials, then they're going to be like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense, right? And that's kind of like a thing that you just kind of pick up over time. Cool.
And also use these as chances to have good conversations with your clients.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like a change order should not be, you shouldn't deliver it as a punishment, and it shouldn't feel like a punishment to your client. A change order is a clarification of your understanding.
Yep, absolutely.
Right, and that's all it is. It's like it's not a huge deal.
Actually, you bring up a good point, Tim. So when I normally talk about process, the new client experience is really, really important. So I'm going to give you guys some bonus material here. When you bring on a client, they are never going to be more excited to talk to you than the day that they sign the contract. And then whether you like it or not, after they sign up, they all have some sort of like buyer's remorse. Like, is this going to be another one of those digital things that ends up ripping me off? Because everybody out there in their own minds has been ripped off by somebody who looks similarly to us. And so a communication standard that we encourage and that we use internally is that on every single, like, you need to be talking to your clients like on a call at least once a week. And you should be giving them updates on their project. We do it daily for the first 2 months, but at least like 2 or 3 times a week. Even if it's just to say like, hey, like you just want to let you know that we're still on track to hit this deadline. We should have this for you by Friday or whenever that is. That alone will bring down the anxiety levels of your clients. And so if you have to have this conversation about a change order request, then you've already had that connection with the client. You guys are on the same team. You're working together. It's not like, oh, well, here's Tim with this freaking bill that I had no idea that I was going to have to pay for. Developing that relationship at the beginning of the agreement is like super, super important. That'll help everything to go much more smoothly.
Great.
Cool. All right, so let's move on to the 4th tip. Oh, and I was just going to say that you can do all these requests with Proposify or Better Proposals or DocuSign, or we use Zoho for everything, so we have Zoho Sign.
Is Faisal still here? Because he's a Zoho consultant.
Is he really? I need his help.
All right,
have him email me afterwards.
Yeah.
Zoho is a really cool software if you can actually get it to work. So the 4th thing, and this is something that I learned from one of our agency clients out of San Diego, this guy named Frank Coel. And what he did after the client signs the contract and we're about to, basically in the onboarding, he would say, Mr. Customer, Miss Customer, as we go through this, we're going to be unveiling a lot of, things that we didn't see before. We're going to, obviously help you to solve these problems that that we've identified. But as we go through this, there's probably going to be some things that we realize that we want to implement that we didn't anticipate. So I would say just for now, just put 10% additional budget aside in the event that we find something really cool that we want to implement for you. And that way you won't have to go around searching for the budget. It'll just be there, right? That line is freaking genius. Because then if you do have, going back to that, something where it is a scope creep issue and it is changing the scope, you already have the budget, right? You've already told them, that there is a chance that we're going to want to change something, right? And if you do have that, if that does come up, the client also knows that they're going to have to pay for that. So if you're charging them $5 grand, 10 grand, whatever it is, you already have budget there available. And then if you don't have scope creep and we need to start, doing our marketing, then they already have budget for that too. So you can just go back and be like, well, why don't we just allocate that 10% that you were going to put towards the web dev project, and we just now put it towards the marketing.
Right.
So that is an absolutely fantastic genius line that I learned from Frank.
That is.
And I highly encourage every single one of you all to use that in your onboarding. You don't want to say it necessarily before they've given you the check and signed off on the project, but as you're going through the onboarding, you should be doing that. Cool. Any questions about that?
No, we do have a question from Lauren about ongoing support retainers. He wants to know if they should be billed by percentage of original project or some other model.
So to me, and again, I'm all about the unlimited. So you could basically look at like all the clients and how much they're sending you. And if you're tracking hours, you can figure out what your cost is and then just come up with an average, above cost. So I would do a 4X over cost, and then that becomes your unlimited price. So for example, like, let's say that you have 5 clients and they each send you, $100 worth of work per month, or $200 worth of work per month in terms of labor, then you could charge them $800 a month. I'm not sure about the 10%. I can see clients pushing against this, especially if they just gave you money. Yeah,
I mean, they're like, you're not asking the client to give you 10%.
Right.
All you're doing is saying, hey, as we go through this process, there's going to be a shiny object that neither one of us thought about.
Yep.
Or we're going to realize like that's not something we anticipated. So like this is just your rainy day fund. So you're not surprised if you emotionally commit to that 10% budget, then you're okay. And we may not use it, but it's so you're not asking them to hand you any money. You're just saying like, in our experience, this is what happens. We get 78% of the way through the project, and you're like, oh, I just saw this thing that I really want now, and I've got to stick it in. And that's and everyone who's been through this before in any capacity would be like, oh yeah, like no, I did that last week. Yes, it's true.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
I think that, especially if you're positioning yourself as the expert, which you should, they appreciate that proactive approach. They appreciate that you are anticipating things that they didn't think about. So it makes it really easy. Amy asked another question about the clients who go above and beyond with the unlimited approach. It happens very, very infrequently. But, what we would say is like, oh my gosh, like this is great. It looks like you guys are doing super, super well. Like you must have a ton of, work coming through the door. Can we talk about some other things that could help you to, manage these new clients? Or it's an opportunity for an upsell. Anybody who is pushing the limits of that unlimited program, they are dying to buy something else from you.
Or they're jerks.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen very often. But yes, that does happen. Okay, cool. All very, very good questions. So next thing is getting projects done faster. This is an issue that everybody has, or that a lot of people have, where they're like, my designer is just taking too long. My developer is taking too long. They don't understand what's going on. I can't communicate. It really just comes down to communication. Having good practices for communication is going to save you a ton of time. My approach is like, hey, let's always send something over better, and so that we get it done right the first time, so we don't have to spend a bunch of money and waste a bunch of time trying to fix it, right? And at the end of the day, if your designers are taking too long, it's because they just don't know what you want. Every time you tell a designer to just be creative, like a designer dies a little bit inside. So they need to know just, what it is that you're looking for, especially if it's a designer that's working for you for the first time. And then when it comes to developers just don't know how it's supposed to function, right? Developers by nature, both of them by nature, they want to get their projects approved. They want to make you happy. Well, designers want to make you happy. Developers sometimes don't give a shit. Designers want you to approve their designs. They want their stuff to be accepted. Developers want to have stuff built so they can move on and build the next thing. And so communication is the biggest factor when it comes to stuff taking too long. So here's a few tips on that. First one is being specific. And this is especially true when it's a new relationship with that designer or developer. You do absolutely need to be very specific and not use vague terms in your instructions. You know, when it's a designer saying, you know, the being creative, I like it clean, like those things mean a million different things to a million different people. So the one way that you can do that is that you provide examples, and not like 10 examples, like 1 or 2 examples that give specific instructions to that individual as to how things are supposed to work. And then another simple one is just when you're sending stuff over to your developers, designers, whoever it is, organize all your assets into one place. Don't like say, hey, here's this thing, and then like, you know, email them another thing like an hour later. Just take the time at the beginning to organize everything into one folder that's very easy so that you can just hand it off to that person. And this is especially important if you're using contractors, because your contractors are usually managing multiple projects, right? So every time that you send them something, they have to interrupt whatever they're doing, whether that be on your project or somebody else's project. They have to gather that, they have to reorganize it themselves, and then they go back to doing whatever it is. If they have to do that, your stuff ends up taking a lot longer. So this is why I'm telling you, like, it's so important just to organize everything at the beginning. And the most important thing is to use screenshots and screen share video. Screenshots are unbelievably important when it comes to design work, and screen share video is an absolute must when you're doing development work. And so basically, like, you know, you can use a tool like Loom, or I personally use Jing, or like Apple has a built-in one that you can use. But those are so, so important. So let me give you an example of something that we do. On our side, we track everything, like down to the second and to the penny. You know, and that's one of the ways that we're able to manage our profitability, obviously. And we're doing like thousands of projects every single month. So it's really, really important that we manage everything, because, you know, one misstep and we go from having a very good month to losing a bunch of money. So I actually use our ticketing portal, and I use my own team members to do my stuff. So I had some flyers that I needed designed, and I assigned them to 2 different designers, equally as skilled, but neither of them knew that I was doing this experiment. So one of those, I gave them a fairly nondescript instructions. I said, hey, you know, I need this turned around. I want this pricing sheet done, pull it from the home page, and use these logos. I didn't give them a whole lot of direction. The other one, I was super, super descriptive. I gave them the original file. I gave them screenshots. I went over the top with the instructions, which is what I normally do. And so here's an example of my screenshots where I'm like popping all this stuff in. I'm showing where the copy's supposed to go. Da, 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 da. So essentially, I just wanted them to recreate this flyer for me. So when it comes to filling out the instructions, a complaint that I hear is like, I don't have the time. Like, it'll take me more time to give the instructions and then I should just do it myself. That in and of itself is an issue, because you're never going to get out of working in the business and shifting to working on the business. But I timed it, you know, so me submitting the vague ticket only took me 4 minutes, and then being very, very descriptive, it was only an extra 6 minutes. So it was 10 minutes total. And then the results are pretty impressive. So this is the results, are the vague requests. I got back 2 versions. I mean, they look good. It wasn't actually what I was looking for, but it took them 2 versions of this, and I got it back. The second request, it took me 1 small revision, and I got this back. So let's look at the time. I'm just kind of curious as to how long you guys think this would take. How long do you all think the vague request would take to get completed? Just pop it in the chat. I want to hear some guesses. Winner will get a hat. Let's see. 30 minutes for the vague request, 1.5 hours for the vague request, 3 hours for the vague request. Pretty good. You guys are getting pretty accurate. Okay, so the vague request, 5 hours for the vague request. Okay. Now, what about the specific request? How long do you think the specific request would take? 10 minutes. Man, that guy's quick. 40 minutes, an hour, 27 minutes. Okay, 1.5, 30 minutes to an hour. That's kind of cheating.
No hat for Jerry.
Yeah, that's too broad. Okay, cool. So the vague request ended up taking 2 hours and 33 minutes. So who's my big winner on that one?
Let's
I think
see.
Jerry. I think Jerry was the winner on that one. He's the closest.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So Jerry, I got to get your info. I'll shoot you out a hat. And the specific request was 39 minutes.
Oh, who said 40 minutes? Jason.
Who said 40 minutes? Yeah, Jason's the big winner there. Just under 40 minutes, 39 minutes and 56 seconds. So that might not seem like a lot, right? It's a 4x difference essentially. But in terms of time, we look at that and we're like, it's 2 hours difference, right? I got 2 hours to spare. Well, let's look at it on a bigger scale, right? Because we're all trying to be efficient. We're trying to get more out of our teams. So if you are able to save 2 hours on a project, let's say you have 4 of those projects a month, okay? So 2 times 4 is 8 hours, right? There's 8 hours in a working day. And let's say that scenario happens every single month. So that's 8 hours times 12 days. There's 22 working days in a month. If you can fix this on every single one of those little projects, that 8 hours a month ends up being nearly it's more than 2 weeks. Well, let's just call it 2 weeks of working time. Imagine what you could do if you were able to get 2 more weeks out of your team. You could take on so many more projects. Your clients are going to get their stuff back. Like the deliverables are going to get back faster. So you're going to have happier clients. You're not going to have to spend as much money on your projects. I mean, imagine if you could reduce your payroll overall by 2 weeks. That's crazy. Like that's an amazing little bonus that you give yourself at the end of the year. And that's the thing with operations and efficiency. Most of the people that are on this call, they've been doing this for a while. You're not going to find one thing that's going to like save you 40% on the efficiency side. You're going to find a bunch of little things that are going to save you like an hour here, 15 minutes here, 3 hours here. And over time, that all adds up to helping you improve your efficiency by 20, 30, 40%. And so this is just an example. Like just by investing an extra 6 minutes on the instructions, I saved 2 hours of time. And if you multiply that by, an actual year, it's major, major dollars that you're saving.
So, Chris, how do you make a specific request, or how do you make a specific, or we're often getting this stuff from the clients, and the client's fuzzy about what they want. They're like, I want it fresher. Can we make it brighter? It just doesn't snap for me.
Yeah.
Like how do you turn that into a specific request?
Yeah. Awesome question. So it goes back to the beginning of the relationship. So when you are talking to a client, you are not an order taker. They are coming to you to solve a problem, right? So at the very beginning of that relationship, you need to establish yourself as the expert. And I'll give you an explanation or kind of like a little story of how I experienced that. So I've played soccer my whole life. I'm 40 years old now, so I'm well past my prime. But, I'm a pretty good athlete, but I'm absolutely amazing at getting injured. And so one of the things that I did back in 2010 is I tore my Achilles. So if you don't know where the Achilles is, it connects basically your ankle to your foot, and it's like the biggest tendon in the body. And usually when that happens to a professional athlete, that's like a career-ending injury. So I tore my Achilles when I was 30. Basically, I went to go sprint, and it just popped. So I didn't know anything about tearing my Achilles, and none of my friends had done it either. So I just found some doctor that I had gone to for like a knee or a shoulder injury. And I went to him and I was like, hey, can you fix this for me? He's like, oh yeah, sure. Didn't know anything. Didn't even think to ask questions, right? So I go to him. Basically, it was the absolute worst surgery ever. Like the recovery program was horrible. He was used to helping people who were, their lifestyle was essentially just sitting at a desk and didn't want to play sports again. And so it ended up taking me 2 years to recover from that, to the point where I could, act at a 90% capacity of what, or play at a 90% capacity of what I could before. Fast forward to 2014. I tear my other Achilles tendon. But this time I kind of knew what I was looking for. I kind of knew the end result that I wanted. So I did my research and I found this doctor in San Diego, and he specifically treated athletes. So I walk into his office, and all over the walls, he's just got like signed posters of all these athletes, and specifically soccer players. And so when I automatically, like, I'm like, oh man, I should be in the right place, right? And think about this, like, how are you positioning your agency when you're talking to your clients for the first time? So I walk in, eventually, I get seated, and he starts asking me all these questions, like questions that the guy 4 years ago didn't even think to ask me. Like, oh, tell me about your lifestyle. What's the sport that you play? What position do you play? Like, what's important to you? Like, he went through a very, very thorough fact finding with me. And by the time we got through with that, he had built up enough trust with me that I was like, this is the guy. Like, if there's anybody in San Diego County who I want to work on my Achilles tendon and who understands me, it's this guy. And so then he presents his solution to me, and he's like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this type of surgery. You're not going to be in a cast. We're going to have you up and moving around within a week. And we should have you walk in within 5 to 6 weeks. Now, granted, the first time around, I was in that full leg cast for 3 weeks, and I didn't actually walk for 10. And he's telling me that he's going to have me walking in 6 weeks and back on the field in 6 months. I'm like, this is incredible. So because he had established that relationship with me, and I felt like he understood me, I would have done anything like he wanted. He could have told me to drink a bottle of ketchup every day, and I would have done it because I trusted him. This is the type of thing that you need to do as an agency owner at the beginning, is you need to develop that level of trust with the client so that they basically do whatever it is that you ask them to do. So when a client comes to you and they say, I want it to be clean, I want it to be fresh, listen, right? Make sure that you understand their business, regurgitate, prove to them that you understand. And then I say, based on what, we've done for other companies that are like yours and what you've told me, I would recommend that we do this for your website project or video. And we've put this particular whatever has been proven to get the results of XYZ that you are looking for. That only works after you've developed enough trust. So think back to it with my own Achilles, like, oh, I worked on David Beckham and I did his surgery and we had him back up and running in 6 months. And obviously, he's playing professionally again and making $50 million a year. We're going to take the same basic approach that we used for him. Is that okay? I'm like, heck yeah. I mean, if it's good enough for David Beckham, it's good enough for me. So you all can do the same exact thing, but it starts at the very beginning of that relationship. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think that's great.
Okay, cool. So when it comes to the impact of wasting time, right? Of that, like going back to the, hey, 2 hours wasted time on that vague request versus specific request. When you take longer, clients are more annoyed. So if you can get it done faster, they're going to be happier. You can't take on as many projects because there's some inefficiencies in your, what happened here? I just lost my thing. Okay, we're back. You can't take on as many projects. So if you want to do that, you're going to have to increase your labor spend, which is not always fun. And then the thing that people don't think about is that you're going to have higher employee and contractor churn, because eventually your designer or developer is going to be like, Tim never like sends over everything. It always seems like he's annoyed with me. I want to go work for somebody else.
Well, Chris, I am annoyed with you.
Never. You can never be annoyed with me. But you know what I mean? Like, you can sense when your staff are getting frustrated. And if any of you guys have had anybody leave in the middle of a project, that's one of those things that keeps you up at night. When you're like, oh my God, I just got a new contract and, Jimmy just left the company and I have absolutely no idea how I'm going to get this stuff done. So by managing this and being specific with your requests and doing all the best practices that I just told you, it's really going to help you to keep your team. Cool. So one thing that I do want to point out is that we are living through a very interesting time. I think everybody knows that. And what I like to say that we are going through an evolution. We're going through an evolution in business and society. And hopefully you guys are seeing this, like what our agencies are, is everybody's getting really busy because, like I mentioned earlier, the businesses are starting to realize that they should have been listening to us digital people for the past 10 years. And the coronavirus shutdown was essentially a warning shot that showed them how vulnerable they are. So this whole evolution, I believe, is going to be great in the end. But it is right now, it is really, really important that you manage your resources, that you take action on things, and above all else, that you're maximizing the efficiency of all of your operations. So this quote that I got, it's actually, people like to misquote Darwin on this. He actually didn't say this, but it's still a great quote. It's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It's the one that is most adaptable to change that is going to make it, that's going to survive. And that's what we've been seeing for the past 3 months. So that's pretty much all I have. So I don't know if you guys have any questions that you want to ask me. Feel free to pop them in the chat. And then I do want to share something else with you guys if you are interested in learning about how you can pretty much get the easy button for all of this stuff. So Tim, I'll let you manage the chat. Let's see. Oh, and don't forget to stay to the end. Perfect. And don't forget to stay to the end because I want to give you the link for the slides. So if it's okay, like I would like to be able to show you guys how you can get all this stuff done while also being able to run your agency. So if that's cool, you know, just stick around. If I have your permission, if I can share this information for you, that would be great. So bottom line is you don't have to go through this alone. You don't have to try and figure all this stuff out. You can get the people and processes to help you. And this is one of the things that's kind of like my areas of genius, is being able to look at all these things and break them down into very, very easy, manageable steps that anybody can implement. So when it comes to the operations side, like nobody ever teaches you how to do this, nor do they ever teach you how to do it in the midst of a freaking pandemic. And this is the way that I look at agency operations, right? You've got all these moving parts, and essentially all these moving parts are opportunities where you can lose money. But the beauty is that if I can do this, anybody can do it. So at the end of the day, you know, we work with digital agencies and we give them the people and the processes so that they can take on more projects and scale profitably, right? Because at the end of the day, you got to be able to do this stuff and make money. And our agencies are typically great at sales and they're great at strategy, and they really, really struggle when it comes to operations and fulfillment. And some of you guys are out there probably nodding your heads on this. It's normal, right? It's 100% normal. And so we essentially solve all the problems that agencies have when it comes to the operations side. And, you know, like I was talking about earlier, I started an agency way back in 2012. So I completely understand all the challenges that people have with getting stuff done. And so this is just a snapshot of our team. And there's 4 main buckets of things that we do for agencies. So the first one is just building out WordPress websites. That's like the #1 thing that we're doing for agencies, building out their WordPress websites. Second one is landing pages and funnels. So if you guys have a campaign, ad campaign, you need a landing page done, we do that for you guys. And then third, updates and changes. We are constantly doing updates and changes for clients. And I think I looked at the average completion time. We're getting them done in, I think, like 45 hours after they're submitted. So it's pretty fast. But yeah, we're doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these a month. And then the last one thing that we do for agencies is digital design work. So, you know, mock-ups, of course, for websites, but banners, social media graphics, anything that you would send to a designer. We don't do print, we don't do logos, and we don't do big ebooks, but we will do like little lead magnet ebooks, about 8 pages or less. And then the last thing is we give you these processes that we've created, and through our standards of communication, as well as some training programs that we have for y'all, we teach you how to improve the communication and the operations. I like to say that we like Miyagi you, if you know what that term means. It's like, you know, Daniel San's doing the wax on and paint the floor and paint the house and all that stuff. And at the end, he knows how to fight karate. That's basically what we do. That's what we do, is like we have you learn from us through doing our systems and processes. And then over time, you have also improved your own systems and processes. So here's some like just examples of results that we've gotten for clients. So this niche, they focus on the senior living space. Right after the coronavirus, she contacted all of her clients. You know, we helped her put a bunch of things up on the website. They had 100% retention during March, April, and May. A lot of that because of the work that we were able to help them get done. another one. Tax Pro Marketer, they work with accountants. They have a busy season that's usually between December to February, but of course, tax season got pushed back. So they have a second boom. And of course, they need a scalable labor force. So we were able to help them take on even more projects during that time. And Painters Academy. So they started working with us. They doubled their business because they finally had the people that they needed. And then the coronavirus hits. They get really, really worried, actually. I'm like, telling them, guys, you're going to get slammed. And then, of course, April, May, June, their business booms, and they're on track to have an amazing year again. And we give them the labor as well as the people so that, the people and the processes so they can handle all this growth. Cool. And then we've got Duct Tape Marketing. They've been looking for, a team of people to help them with design and dev for years. I can't remember how they found out about us, but basically, we've been working with them, helping them with landing pages. I spoke at their conference too, and then they refer us clients. Left Right Labs, they again, had very, very bad experiences with outsourcing, and they started working with us. And then right away, we take on all their updates and changes. That was a huge bottleneck for them. And then eventually that turned into websites, and now we actually have a full-time developer working with them as well. This agency just partnered with another agency, so they've experienced a lot of growth. They love the weekly calls, the daily updates. We've really helped them out with QC, and then we've also been helping them to train their new PMs. So this gal, Katie, she comes from a traditional background and doesn't really know digital, so that's what we've been helping her to do. And then Jennifer, I love her story. I mean, yes, we've helped her to take on a ton of projects, but she messages me and she's like, my team literally hugs me because of the work that you're doing for us. So, and they're based they have one office in Anchorage, another one in Reno. 910, they stopped offering websites actually. And then since they found us, they're like, man, we need to start doing this again, because it's a great kind of icebreaker project. And then Cliff sends me a text the other day. He does custom web dev, and he's like, your team is killing it. So this is basically how we can help you guys. If this is something that you're interested in and you want to help and you need help with the people and processes side of your agency. So we give you a semi-dedicated team of 6 to 8 people. We work US hours. Everybody understands marketing. You send over as many projects as you want to your clients. We give you a daily status update on everything. You have a weekly meeting with your team leader. It's like a mini stand-up meeting. And basically on that call, you're going to talk about all the open projects, what's going well and what you want us to improve, and what's the goal for the week. And that way you say hey, if you guys launch these landing pages, if you launch this website, if you do these designs, it's a great week for me. And that way everybody is on the same page so that we know exactly what we have to do to make it a great week for you. So we do all your websites, all your funnels, all your updates and changes, all the digital design work. And that normally comes with a 14-day satisfaction guarantee. It's normally $24.97 a month. And then we do give you the special bonuses as well. So let's see, we have one private coaching call with me every single month, and we give you a 21-day money back guarantee, and then $500 off your first month. And then on top of that, we're going to give you, did we lose Tim? Tim, are you there? Why'd your picture go away? Weird. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. And hopefully we're still recording too. We're going to give you the creating and selling digital course. There he is. Did we lose you there for a second?
Yeah, somebody inadvertently unplugged the router in my house.
Fun. Well, I think it's still recording, so we're good.
Yeah, it is.
So I was just saying, we're also going to give you a course called Creating and Selling Digital. That basically gives you our best practices on the sales side, and then also on the operations side. We're going to show you, how to create your workflows, how SOPs. And then we have this other training actually called SOP Bootcamp that we're going to give you. We usually sell each of those for $2,000 each. And that specifically is on SOPs. We give you templates for SOPs. We show you how to communicate, how to send things more efficiently. So we are giving that to you as a bonus as well. And so to get started, just $19.97 for the first month. It includes a 21-day money-back guarantee. After that, it just goes month to month. So it's super, super flexible. And then we do have a deadline on this, 5 p.m., June 30th, so end of the month. So if you're interested in this, well, first, let me ask you a question. It's, you know, do you guys want to figure this out on your own, or do you want somebody to help you to get all this stuff not only like identified and give you the templates, but just get it implemented? Because that's what we do, is like we're the implementation specialists. So if you're interested in that, you can apply. Tim, I think I gave you the link. If you could pop that into the chat for everybody. You can apply. We'll basically just have a call, talk a little bit about your agency, what you are offering, and you know, see if this is a good fit. Our objective from a financial standpoint is we want to make sure that we can help you manage or bring on an additional $12,000 to $25,000 in revenue per month. So we'll basically talk about that and make sure that it's going to be a good fit. And then that's it. And if you want the slides, you can just pop this in and I give you all my slides.
And I will, in the recap that I'll send out tomorrow, I'll send all that stuff out. And before we wrap up here, Chris, we have one question. So curious about approach to dividing work, new full project work versus maintenance support. Do you find that focusing people on one or the other is more efficient from an operations standpoint?
I got to read that, that question.
Yeah, so basically, do you have a team to work on projects and a separate team to work on maintenance?
Yeah. So to me, that comes down to the numbers. And so, you know, you typically, I don't know if you talk about this, but your cost of goods sold. So what you are spending to get projects out the door, and which is usually labor and a combination of software, right? So your cost of goods sold, meaning the price that you pay to get projects out the door, should be 30% or less, right? If it's higher than that, then you can get by, but the problem is that you're probably going to have some issues with having enough budget to bring on, you know, the important people that are going to help you grow the agency later on. So to address your question, Amy, I would look at your COGS, and like if you were to use somebody like us and we charge $24.97 a month, what makes the most financial sense? What do we need to do? Do we need to do the full project work, or do we need to manage all of the maintenance and support so that, you know, we're in that, you know, 20 to 30% COGS ratio? And so like basically to like summarize, like everybody would hire somebody who cost $500,000 a year if they made you $5 million a year. It's the same with us. Like if you're paying us $2,500, we want to help you to make another 12 to 25,000, whether that be doing new projects or maintenance or a combination of the two. As long as that ratio is there, then it makes sense.
All right. And Arya, you've raised your hand. Did you have a question? All right. I don't think Arya's here anymore. Okay.
Cool.
Maybe she was raising her hand to see if she had permission.
Oh, to say hi,
yes.
To say goodbye?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool.
Everyone has permission to leave. So Chris, thank you so much for this. I'm just delighted that this was, you know, that you were able to stop by. And I really think that this was a terrific, really a terrific sort of introduction to the basics around communication and, you know, and those basic frameworks around how to not get overwhelmed by the simple things, because, you know, there's few projects are extraordinarily complex, but there are so many moving pieces to it that I think, you know, it is easy to get overwhelmed.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I was talking about like one of my areas of genius is being able to break those big things down and to see the patterns and just break it down in smaller chunks, you know?
Yeah.
And that's something that our agency has done really, really well. And just identifying like, okay, what's the bare minimum that we need from our clients to be able to do these mock-ups? What's the bare minimum that we need to be able to do the builds and still get them done really, really fast and with high quality? So, yeah. You know, it's taken us a lot of time. So hopefully you guys can learn from me. And if you have any questions, you know, definitely just use that link and schedule an appointment, and hopefully we can help you get to where you need to go.
Yeah. And Chris, thank you so much. Chris Martinez, Dude Agency, dudeagency.io. He is also the host of the Operation Freedom, Operation Agency Freedom podcast.
Yep.
Which
you were on.
Which I was on. Big fun. And it pops up in my Instagram feed all the time, which is just cool. And thanks so much. This is great.
Awesome. Oh yeah. If we owe you the swag, just email Tim, or you can. I mean, I can give you my email too.
Yeah, you can just tim@timkilroy.com, and I'll get that over to
dudeagency.io. I just need a mailing address. Hopefully you're in the States. Otherwise, the international shipping is going to be crazy. It's probably cheaper for me to just give you money to make the hat in your own country.
Oh, it's Pennsylvania.
Okay, cool.
So Chris will drive it to you.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want the hat to catch corona on the plane. All right.
Right. We sanitize it before it goes in the package.
All right. Thanks,
awesome.
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for showing up. This is big fun.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.